Good evening. This is Stacy Close with the Laws and Regulations presentation on Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, otherwise known as COBRA, for the Managed Care and Contractual Services class with Dr. Shonda Luther. COBRA was established in 1985, enacted in 1986 as an expansion of Title X. In addition to the rules for continuation of healthcare coverage, COBRA also included the EMTALA law. EMTALA is the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. It requires hospitals to provide services to patients with emergency medical conditions. As you can see from the bullet points, COBRA established rules for continuation in healthcare coverage and is in effect for those with employers with more than 20 full-time employees. It includes medical, dental, and vision. Coverage usually lasts anywhere from 18 to 36 months. 18 months is the standard. 29 months typically applies to those who have a proven disability, and 36 months typically applies to those who've been through death, legal separation, or a divorce. The details regarding qualifying life events with regards to COBRA are shown in the bullet points here. With regards to the voluntary or involuntary termination of employment, there is a caveat in the fact that if somebody's terminated due to gross misconduct, COBRA will not apply. Otherwise, the remaining bullet points explain that divorce, legal separation, children who grow past the age of 26, therefore no longer are able to be a dependent. Again, death of employee, somebody becoming entitled for Medicare, or changes in the hours that they are working. The individual impacts actually cross over with some of the payer impacts. The individual impact is in the sense that the individual must notify their employer within 60 days if any of those qualifying events occur. Once the individual elects COBRA, they have 45 days to pay all the retroactive premiums to the plan. If they don't pay timely, they actually chance having that coverage canceled. The beneficiary is required to pay the entire cost of COBRA coverage, which, as I mentioned, can get costly. I included that because COBRA actually requires that the employees or the beneficiaries pay 102% of the costs. Those costs will include what's typically paid by the employee, the employer, and then the extra 2% for administrative fees. So you can see it could get very costly. And the reason that crosses over with the payer impacts is because in this instance with COBRA, the individuals are the payers. There is no responsibility by the employer to pay. The impact to the employer is that they're required to provide general notice to an employee within 90 days of when they first become covered. They also have to give them an election notice in the event that one of those qualifying life event occurs, or if for some other reason coverage for some reason would cease. The plan administrator should be able to prove that the notice was sent. Proof that is held up in court previously includes proof of who mailed the notice and date and time that it was mailed. In the event that an employer fails to provide notice or fails to produce proof of notice, there can be civil penalties, in some cases up to $110 a day from the date of failure. Again, it's up to the courts to decide past those civil penalties if they will impose any statutory penalties or not. They aren't typically applied unless there's been some kind of bad faith or kind of gross misconduct type failure on the part of the employer. In one instance, an employer just failed completely to send the beneficiary notice regarding COBRA whatsoever, and that was deemed to be bad faith, and therefore penalties such as medical costs, legal fees, premiums that would have been due if the employee had the opportunity to enroll in COBRA, all became the responsibility to the employer to cover as a result of those court findings. With regards to providing proof of the information being sent, first class mails what's recommended because it comes with confirmation of the mailing, which includes that necessary information, and those records should be maintained in the event that there is some sort of legal action later down the road. That way those records could be produced. The final page of the presentation is the references page, and it just shows where, of course, all of the background information was obtained for the content of the presentation. Thank you and have a good night.